For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle presented their departure from royal life as an act of courage. They framed it as an escape from an institution they described as cold, outdated, and hostile, particularly toward Meghan. California was meant to symbolize rebirth, freedom from tradition, peace away from scrutiny, and the chance to control their own story. But critics now argue that the California dream has not delivered what was promised. Instead of stability and creative independence, the Sussexes have faced mounting media backlash, professional disappointments, and growing public skepticism. What once looked like a bold reinvention increasingly appears, to detractors, like a carefully managed image struggling under the weight of unanswered questions. This shift did not happen overnight. It has been building quietly, piece by piece, as observers began to re-examine earlier narratives that had once been widely accepted without challenge. Media fatigue and the turning tide. When Harry and Meghan first arrived in the United States, they were welcomed by major platforms eager to capitalize on royal proximity. Netflix, Spotify, and major publishers signed headline-grabbing deals. The expectation was clear: exclusive insight, compelling storytelling, and global appeal. What followed, however, divided audiences. While supporters viewed the couple's projects as brave truth-telling, critics felt the content leaned heavily on grievance rather than growth. The Spotify partnership ended publicly and awkwardly. Netflix projects failed to expand beyond a narrow narrative. Industry insiders began questioning whether the Sussex brand could attract long-term audience loyalty rather than short-term curiosity. At the same time, reports of staff turnover at their foundation added to concerns. In professional circles, frequent leadership exits are often interpreted, fairly or not, as a sign of internal instability. Each departure fed speculation that the Sussex operation was more difficult to manage than originally portrayed. Piers Morgan and the return of old questions. No figure has been more openly critical of Meghan Markle than broadcaster Piers Morgan. His disputes with her date back years, and his commentary has often provoked backlash, complaints, and regulatory scrutiny. Recently, Morgan revived discussions about Meghan's pre-royal social life, referencing photographs and social connections from her acting years. These images, circulated widely online, show her at elite events and private gatherings common within entertainment and luxury circles. To supporters, these photos mean nothing more than a working actress networking. To critics, they raise questions about access, funding, and proximity to powerful social environments that later became controversial for entirely different reasons. Importantly, no court has accused Meghan Markle of criminal behavior, and no formal charges exist. However, critics argue that public figures are not immune from scrutiny when past associations overlap with later scandals involving others. This distinction between legal guilt and reputational questioning sits at the heart of the current controversy. The power of silence. One element repeatedly highlighted by commentators is silence. In earlier disputes, Meghan and Harry responded quickly and forcefully through lawyers, statements, or allies. In contrast, recent allegations circulating online have received little direct response. For supporters, silence signals dignity and restraint. For critics, silence fuels suspicion. In the modern media ecosystem, absence of rebuttal is often interpreted not as calm confidence but as strategic avoidance. Whether that interpretation is fair is secondary to the fact that it shapes public perception. Why the UK still matters against this backdrop. Reports of Prince Harry spending more time in the UK have taken on symbolic weight. Critics frame this not as family reconciliation but as a return to institutional protection, the very system Harry once denounced. The British royal establishment, for all its flaws, possesses unmatched experience in managing reputational crises. History shows that the institution prioritizes continuity and containment above all else. For commentators, the question is no longer whether Harry criticized the monarchy, but whether he now needs it. Part 2: Public memory, institutional power, and the question that won't go away. Public scandals rarely explode all at once. More often, they simmer quietly, waiting for context to change. Critics argue that this is what's happening now. Old photographs, forgotten interviews, abandoned partnerships, and unresolved inconsistencies are being re-examined not individually, but collectively. Alone, each detail may seem insignificant. Together, they form a pattern that fuels skepticism. Reputation versus records. One lesson repeatedly cited in royal history is that reputation can survive gossip, but not sworn testimony. Prince Andrew's fall from public life did not occur because of headlines alone. It occurred because allegations entered legal records. Once statements exist under oath, they cannot be erased by public relations strategies. This reality explains why commentators draw uncomfortable parallels between past royal scandals and present anxieties. Even indirect proximity to controversial figures becomes explosive when legal systems become involved. It is crucial to stress again, speculation is not proof. But speculation grows when transparency feels incomplete. The Meghan question, the most persistent and controversial question raised by critics, is not about legality, but about narrative consistency. They ask, why do certain timelines feel unclear? Why were some public plans quietly changed without explanation? Why do earlier lifestyle details appear misaligned with known income? These questions do not prove wrongdoing. But unanswered questions, repeated often enough, take on a life of their own. In media psychology, this phenomenon is well documented. People distrust stories that shift without acknowledgement of the shift. The royal institution's calculus: if pressure continues, observers believe the monarchy will act as it always has. Strategically, the institution's priority is survival, not sentiment. History suggests that when forced to choose, Crown protects the bloodline first and reputation second. Whether Harry and Meghan remain aligned under that pressure is an open question, the only question that matters. Stripped of emotion, fandom, and outrage, the controversy reduces to one central issue in the public imagination: what was known, when was it known, and how was it managed? That question, fair or unfair, will continue to shape commentary until it is either definitively answered or eclipsed by new events. Final thought: this story is no longer about love, escape, or fairy tales. It is about power, narrative control, and the limits of image management in the digital age. Whether the Sussexes emerge intact depends less on public sympathy and more on how effectively silence, strategy, and institutional forces intersect. The world is watching, not for drama, but for clarity. Public scandals involving powerful figures rarely arrive at a single explosive moment. More often, they unfold slowly. Information sits unnoticed, dismissed as irrelevant or forgotten entirely until circumstances change. Then, suddenly, those same details are re-examined through a new lens. That is the phase critics believe Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are now entering. What once appeared to be isolated controversies, media disputes, failed contracts, uncomfortable issues, are now being discussed as part of a broader plan. Individually, none of these issues are conclusive. Collectively, they have created a climate of doubt that public relations alone struggles to contain. Reputation can survive headlines, but not records. Royal history offers a clear lesson: gossip damages. A legal record destroys reputation. Prince Andrew did not lose his public role because of tabloid speculation. He lost it because allegations entered sworn legal territory. Once testimony exists under oath, once depositions are filed, and once evidence becomes part of official records, the story changes permanently. No apology tour, no media silence, and no institutional record can fully erase it. This is why commentators repeatedly draw comparisons between past royal scandals and current anxieties. Not because outcomes are identical, but because the mechanism is the same. Institutions can manage rumors. They cannot reverse sworn testimony. That distinction explains why any suggestion, however indirect, of potential legal scrutiny creates intense concern among those with experience of royal damage control. Silence as strategy, or vulnerability. One of the most debated aspects of the current situation is the Sussexes' response strategy, or lack of one. In the past, Harry and Meghan were quick to respond to negative coverage. Legal letters were sent. Statements were released. Allies briefed friendly journalists. Lawsuits were filed when they believed boundaries had been crossed. This time, the response has been markedly different. There have been no firm denials addressing specific claims circulating online. No public legal action against prominent. No coordinated defense from celebrity supporters. Just silence supporters interpreted as restraint. Critics interpreted as inability to deny specific points without drawing more attention to them. In a modern media environment, silence is rarely neutral. It invites interpretation, speculation, and narrative takeover by others, whether intentional or not. That vacuum has been filled rapidly. Meghan questioned narrative consistency at the center of the controversy, not a single allegation, but narrative consistency. Critics argue that certain timelines, decisions, and public explanations surrounding Meghan's past and early royal life contain contradictions that were never clearly addressed. They point to shifting plans, unexplained changes, and moments where official accounts appeared incomplete or confusing. These observations do not constitute proof of wrongdoing. But credibility in public life is built not only on innocence, but on coherence. When stories change without acknowledgement, trust erodes, even among neutral observers. In psychology, this is well known. People are more forgiving of mistakes than of perceived evasiveness. The role of the royal institution of pressure continues. Many believe that the royal institution will respond in a way it always has, quietly, and with a singular priority, preservation of the crown. The monarchy has centuries of experience managing scandal. Its methods are rarely emotional and never sentimental. When faced with threats, it protects the structure first, the bloodline second, and individuals last. This reality fuels speculation about whether Harry is seeking not reconciliation, but insulation. The same system he publicly criticized possesses legal expertise, procedural influence, and reputational containment strategies that no Hollywood publicist can match. To critics, Harry's renewed proximity to the state is not ironic, it is logical. The question will not go away stripped of emotion, an outrage. The entire controversy reduces to one unavoidable question in the public imagination. What was known? When was it known? And how was it handled? That question is not accused. Demand clarity. Clarity is not provided. The question is an unresolved question, fair or unfair, become permanent features in public discourse. Pressure on the marriage itself another issue. Whether Harry and Meghan can remain unified under escalating pressure. Public couples often survive scandal by presenting a consistent front. But when institutional interests, legal risk, and reputational survival enter the equation, alignment becomes more difficult. History suggests that royal crises often end with compromises that are not easily distributed. Final reflection of the story is no longer about romance, rebellion, or escape. It's about power, credibility, and control in an age where information never truly disappears. The California dream promised from institutions. The present moment suggests that institutions may now be the only remaining shield. Whether the Sussexes emerge intact will depend not on public sympathy, but on strategy, timing, and whether unanswered questions are addressed or allowed to define the narrative. The world is no longer watching for drama. IT is watching for revolution.